Warclaw Tharn decided to make an example. 3 days after Ambassador Krelthos delivered his warning, the Drathene commander made his choice. He would show humanity and the entire galaxy that the Drathene Empire feared nothing. He selected 2 prisoners from the captured Endeavor crew. Kyle Johnson was a young engineer, only 23 years old. He had joined the exploration service because he wanted to build things, to help humanity expand into the stars. He had a girlfriend waiting on Earth. They planned to marry when his tour ended. Megan Torres was a communications specialist, 26 years old. She had 2 younger brothers who looked up to her. She sent them messages from every new star system the Endeavor discovered. Her family worried about her being so far from home, but she always told them not to worry. Space travel was safe now. Nothing bad would happen. Warclaw Tharn brought them to a public execution chamber. Cameras recorded everything. The broadcast would reach every corner of the galaxy. Jake Morrison, still imprisoned with the rest of the crew, watched through a screen in their containment area. He shouted, pleaded, begged. He offered himself in their place. But the Drathene guards ignored him. Kyle and Megan stood together holding hands. They were scared, but they did not beg. Kyle looked at the camera and spoke clearly. Tell my family I love them. Tell them I was trying to make the universe better. Megan spoke next. Tell my brothers to be brave. Tell them their sister saw wonders beyond imagination. Tell them not to be afraid of the stars. Then Warclaw Tharn stepped forward. He activated a weapon, a blade of energy that hummed in the air. The execution was quick but broadcast in full detail across the galaxy. In the containment area, Jake Morrison screamed. So did Amy Collins. Lisa Hayes, still recovering from her injuries, wept quietly. Every human prisoner felt something break inside them. Not their will, their restraint. He killed them, Amy whispered, tears streaming down her face. They were innocent. They were just kids. He killed them. Jake turned to look at his crew, his friends, people he had spent years with exploring the galaxy together. Remember their names, he said, his voice hard as steel. Kyle Johnson and Megan Torres. Remember what happened here. Remember who did this. Because when help comes, and it will come, we are going to make sure the galaxy never forgets what the Drathene have done. The broadcast reached Earth within hours. Chancellor Sophie Grant watched it in her office. She did not cry. She did not scream. She sat in silence for 5 minutes. Then she made a call. Admiral Crawford, she said, execute Total War Doctrine. Authorization code Grant Alpha 777. No restrictions. No limitations. Show them what we are. Admiral Ben Crawford had been preparing for this moment since the day the Endeavor was attacked. He had called up reserves. He had opened sealed armories. He had activated ship construction facilities that had been mothballed for decades. Now he unleashed everything. The mobilization was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Every human military vessel received orders to report for duty. But it did not stop there. Civilian ships volunteered by the thousands. Mining ships, cargo haulers, colony transports, pleasure yachts, research vessels. Every ship with a drive system and hull integrity was being converted. Engineers worked 24-hour shifts, mounting weapons on civilian hulls. Scientists developed new ammunition, new targeting systems, new defensive technologies. Factories that had made consumer goods retooled to produce missiles and armor plating. But the most shocking change happened to the people. Every nation on Earth, every colony in space, regardless of politics or past conflicts, unified instantly. Countries that had been rivals for centuries became allies overnight. Political parties that could not agree on anything agreed on this. Humanity had been attacked. Humans had been murdered. Nothing else mattered. Recruitment centers were overwhelmed. Volunteers crashed the electronic systems. Young people, old people, everyone wanted to help. Those who could not fight volunteered in factories, hospitals, logistics centers. Parents donated savings to the war effort. Children collected scrap metal for recycling. Within 1 week of Kyle and Megan's execution, humanity assembled the largest military fleet ever created by any species in galactic history. 15,000 warships gathered at the staging point near the edge of human space. But intelligence suggested this was only the first wave. More ships launched every day. Ambassador Krelthos watched from the Galactic Council chambers. Sensors tracked the human fleet as it moved. High Curator Zinn stood beside him, his crystalline body dim with sorrow. It has begun, Zinn said quietly. The sleeping giant opens its eyes. Can we stop this? Krelthos asked. Can we negotiate between them? No. The Drathian killed those two young humans. They broadcast it for all to see. They thought it would create fear. Instead, they created something far more dangerous. They created resolve. Total, absolute resolve. Krelthos watched the fleet move. How many ships do the humans have? The numbers keep growing. Current estimates suggest they can field 50,000 combat vessels if they convert all their civilian ships. The Drathian have maybe 8,000 military ships. The humans outnumber them 6-1. But the Drathian ships are larger, more powerful. Zin turned to look at him. Do you know what scares me most about humans? It is not their numbers. It is not their technology. It is their creativity. They do not fight the way we expect. They do not follow rules. They will find ways to win that we cannot predict. On the Drathian homeworld, Warclaw Tharn received reports of the approaching human fleet. His military advisors looked worried now. The confidence they showed before had evaporated. We have time to prepare, one advisor said. We can fortify the border systems. We can build more ships. How long until the human fleet arrives? Tharn asked. 3 weeks, maybe 4. Then we use that time to show them we are not afraid. We will meet them in battle. We will crush their fleet. We will teach them that the Drathian are masters of war. But doubt gnawed at him now. The humans had mobilized so quickly, so completely. Every intelligence report showed the same thing. Humanity was transforming into something else, something unified and terrifying. In the captured Endeavor's wreckage, still held at a Drathian military facility, Jake Morrison watched through a viewport. He saw Drathian soldiers rushing around preparing defenses. He saw ships launching from the planet's surface. They were scared now. He could see it in how they moved, how they communicated. They are coming, aren't they? Amy asked, standing beside him. Our people are coming for us. Yes, Jake said. And they are not coming just to rescue us. They are coming to make sure this never happens again. Lisa Hayes, still weak but recovering, joined them at the viewport. What will they do? Whatever it takes, Jake said. The Drathian think war is about glory and conquest. They think it is about honor and strength, but they do not understand how humans fight. We do not fight for glory. We fight to protect our own. And when someone hurts our own, we do not stop until they cannot hurt anyone ever again. He pointed at the Drathian ships launching into space. See those ships? They are preparing to fight a battle. But humans do not just fight battles. We fight wars, and we have been perfecting war for 10,000 years of fighting each other. The Drathian are about to receive an education. On Earth, families of Kyle Johnson and Megan Torres received visits from military officers. They were told their loved ones died as heroes. They were told the entire human species was united in grief and anger. They were told their children would be remembered forever. Kyle's girlfriend could not stop crying. But through her tears, she said something that spread across social media within hours. Make them pay. Make them pay for what they did to him. Megan's brothers, both teenagers, released a video message. Our sister explored the stars to make humanity's future better. They killed her for doing her job. They killed her for being human. We want everyone to know we support whatever our military does, whatever it takes to make sure no one else loses a sister, a brother, a friend, whatever it takes. The message resonated across humanity. The anger, the grief, the determination. It united people in ways that politicians and diplomats never could. This was not about politics or territory. This was about family, about protecting your own, about making sure that those who hurt humans understood the consequences. Admiral Ben Crawford stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Valiant. Around him, the assembled fleet stretched as far as sensors could detect. 15,000 ships in perfect formation, and more arriving every hour. He opened a channel to all ships. His voice reached every captain, every crew member, every human preparing for battle. We are going to war, he said, not because we want to, not because we enjoy violence, but because someone attacked us. Someone killed our people. Someone thought we would be easy prey. They were wrong. He paused, looking at the faces on his bridge crew. Young people, old people, veterans, and newcomers, all united in purpose. The Drathian killed Kyle Johnson and Megan Torres. 2 young people who were exploring the universe. 2 humans who never hurt anyone. The galaxy watched them die. Now the galaxy will watch us respond. And when we are done, every species in the universe will understand one simple truth. Humans are untouchable, not because we cannot be harmed, but because those who harm cease to exist. The human fleet arrived at the border of Drathine space exactly 3 weeks after Kyle Johnson and Megan Torres died. The Drathine military had prepared defensive positions. They had mined the approach routes. They had positioned their most powerful warships in blockade formations. They were ready for a conventional battle, but humans did not fight conventional battles. Admiral Ben Crawford stood on the bridge of the Valiant, studying tactical displays. His fleet surrounded the Drathine positions, but they did not attack. Not yet. Instead, every human ship broadcast the same message on all frequencies. It showed Kyle and Megan, their faces, their names, their ages, their families, their dreams. Then it showed their execution. The full unedited recording, and finally it showed a simple statement in 50 languages. These humans died because the Drathine chose violence over peace. Remember their names. Remember what happened. Remember who is responsible. The broadcast repeated endlessly. Every Drathine ship, every Drathine station, every Drathine communication device received it. They could not block it. They could not stop it. The message embedded itself in their networks like a virus. Warclaw Tharn, commanding the Drathine defense fleet, snarled at his communication officers. Stop that transmission. Jam their signals. We are trying, Warclaw, but they are using hundreds of different frequencies, encrypted and unencrypted, standard and non-standard protocols. Every time we block one, 3 more appear. Then the human fleet attacked, but not the way the Drathine expected. Instead of engaging the military ships directly, human vessels bypassed them entirely. Small, fast ships slipped through gaps in the defensive formations. They ignored the warships and went straight for supply convoys, communication relays, and resource collection facilities. The Drathine fleet turned to pursue, but the humans were too quick. By the time Drathine ships arrived at one location, the humans had already destroyed their target and moved on. Within 6 hours, the Drathine had lost 40% of their supply lines. Food shipments, ammunition transports, fuel depots, all destroyed with surgical precision. This is not how war is fought, Tharn roared. They are attacking civilian targets. They are ignoring military honor. His chief advisor, an older Drathine with many battle scars, spoke quietly. Warclaw, the humans are not interested in honor. They are interested in winning. The first week of the war was devastating for the Drathine. Human forces attacked everywhere simultaneously. Communication networks collapsed. Transportation hubs burned. Industrial centers shut down. And through it all, the broadcast continued. Kyle and Megan's faces, their names, their story. The Drathine tried to surrender after 8 days. They sent diplomatic messages requesting negotiations. Admiral Crawford received them on his bridge. He read the Drathine offers: ceasefire, peace talks, reparations, prisoner exchange. He deleted them without responding. The only message he sent back was a single word: no. The Drathine tried again 2 days later. They offered more: territory, technology, wealth, anything to stop the assault. Again, Crawford replied with one word: no. Ambassador Krelthos tried to mediate. He contacted Chancellor Sophie Grant directly, begging for humanity to show mercy. Chancellor, the Drathine are ready to surrender. They will return your prisoners. They will pay for what they did. Please stop this before more lives are lost. Sophie's face on the screen was calm but hard. Ambassador, I appreciate your concern. But the Drathine had a chance to avoid this. They had warnings from you, from the Galactic Council, from my own people. They ignored all of them. They killed our people and broadcast it as entertainment. Now they must face the consequences. But this level of destruction, Krelthos protested. You are crippling their entire civilization. Yes, Sophie said simply. That is the point. The Drathine thought they could conquer humanity. They thought we were weak. They need to understand thoroughly and completely what happens when you attack humans, not just understand it intellectually. Feel it, experience it. Remember it in their bones for generations. How long will this continue? Until we are satisfied that the Drathine will never threaten anyone again. Until every species in the galaxy understands that humans are untouchable. The second week brought psychological warfare. Lisa Hayes, now recovered and working from a human medical ship, developed something remarkable. A computer virus that did not destroy Drathine systems but made them unreliable. Weapons would charge but not fire, or fire at random moments. Shields would activate and deactivate without command. Life support systems would fluctuate, never dangerously but enough to create constant anxiety. Navigation systems would give coordinates that were off by small margins. Nothing killed anyone directly. But the psychological effect was devastating. Drathine soldiers stopped trusting their equipment. Officers questioned their instruments. Crews became paranoid and exhausted. "It is brilliant in its cruelty," Krelthos said to High Curator Zin as they watched intelligence reports. "The humans are not trying to kill every Drathine. They are trying to break their will to fight." "Yes," Zin agreed. "This is the human way. They understand that defeating an enemy is not about destroying them. It is about making them never want to fight you again." Human ships also began broadcasting messages directly to Drathine civilians. Not threats, not propaganda, just information. Videos of Kyle and Megan before they died, their hopes and dreams, their family's grief. Interviews with crew members from the Endeavor, describing the unprovoked attack. The messages asked simple questions. Did your leaders tell you about this? Did they tell you they executed unarmed prisoners? Did they tell you they started this war? Did they tell you humans only wanted peace? The effect rippled through Drathine society. Civilians began questioning their government. Why had they attacked humans? What did they hope to gain? Why were soldiers dying for a war nobody understood? By the end of the second week, the Drathine had lost 60% of their military capability. Not from direct combat, though there had been battles. From the systematic dismantling of everything that supported their war effort. Warclaw Tharn, now desperate, made a final decision. He would lead a strike directly at the human flagship. If he could kill Admiral Crawford, perhaps it would throw the human forces into chaos. Perhaps they could negotiate from a position of strength. He assembled his best ships, his most experienced crews. They made a surprise jump to the human fleet's position. They targeted the Valiant and opened fire with everything they had, but the humans were ready. They had predicted this move, because humans understood desperation. They had experienced it themselves countless times throughout their history. The Drathine strike force was surrounded and destroyed in minutes. Warclaw Tharn's ship was captured intact, its engines disabled but its crew unharmed. Drathine soldiers expected execution. Instead, human marines took them prisoner and treated their wounds. Tharn was brought to the Valiant in restraints. He stood before Admiral Crawford, prepared to die. "Why do you not kill me?" Tharn asked. "I murdered your people. I started this war. Your warrior code must demand my death." Crawford looked at him with cold eyes. "We do not have a warrior code. We do not care about honor in battle. We care about results, and your death accomplishes nothing. Your survival, however, sends a message." He gestured to guards who brought in a view screen. It showed the Drathine homeworld. Human ships surrounded it, not attacking. "Just waiting. Your orbital defenses are gone," Crawford said. "Your fleet is scattered. Your infrastructure is crippled. You have no ability to resist. But we are not destroying your planet. We are not bombing your cities. We are not killing your civilians. Do you know why?" Tharn said nothing. "Because we are not monsters," Crawford continued. "We are humans. We fight when necessary. We fight harder than anyone expects. But we do not fight for extermination. We fight to prevent future conflicts. And right now you are going to help us do that." He activated another screen. This one showed Captain Jake Morrison and the surviving crew of the Endeavor being rescued by human special forces. They were thin, injured, but alive. "Your prisoners are free," Crawford said. "Your military is defeated. Your government will be restructured. Your people will live, but they will live knowing what happened when they attacked humans. They will tell their children. Their children will tell their children. For generations, the name Drathine will be associated with the species that learned why humans are untouchable." Tharn looked at the screens, at his destroyed fleet, at his helpless homeworld. "I do not understand you. We would have slaughtered you all. We would have conquered your worlds. Why do you show this mercy?" "Because we want you alive," Crawford said. "We want you to remember. We want every Drathine to remember. And when other species ask why they should not attack humanity, we want you to tell them. Tell them about Kyle Johnson and Megan Torres. Tell them what happened when you killed 2 innocent humans. Tell them that humans are untouchable, not because we cannot be harmed, but because those who harm us cease to exist as a threat." The message came through every communication channel in known space at the same time. It was impossible to ignore and impossible to misunderstand. Someone was dying and they were screaming for help. Ambassador Velthor stood before the Galactic Council with his forearms spread wide. His insect-like body trembled as he spoke. The translator devices made his clicking sounds into words that every species could understand. His compound eyes reflected the lights of 1,000 worlds watching this moment. "We are the Krillian Empire," Velthor said. His voice carried the weight of 10,000 years of history. "We have never asked for help. We have never needed help. But now we have no choice. The Void Swarm has come to our worlds and we cannot stop it." The council chamber fell silent. The Krillians were known across the galaxy as warriors and survivors. They had built an empire that stretched across 50 star systems. They had fought wars and won them all. They had seen civilizations rise and fall. For them to ask for help meant something terrible was happening. High Chancellor Zixara leaned forward on her platform. She was a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline form. Her voice rang like bells. "Show us what you face." The holographic display activated in the center of the chamber. Images filled the air and several delegates gasped. Others turned away. What they saw was destruction on a scale that defied imagination. The Void Swarm moved like a dark cloud through space. It was made of billions of creatures, each one the size of a small ship. They consumed everything in their path. Planets, stations, ships, asteroids. Nothing survived. Where the swarm passed, only empty space remained. 12 systems have fallen, Velthor continued. His voice was steady, but his body language showed his fear. 3 million of my people are dead. We have thrown everything we have at this enemy. Our best weapons, our strongest ships, our bravest warriors. Nothing works. The swarm adapts, it learns. It grows stronger with every battle. The images showed Krillian warships firing advanced energy weapons at the swarm. The beams of light struck the creatures and seemed to hurt them at first. But then the swarm changed. The creatures that came next absorbed the energy and grew larger. The same weapons that had worked moments before now made the enemy stronger. We calculate that we have 3 months before our homeworld falls, Velthor said. Perhaps 4 if we are lucky. We are broadcasting this message to every civilization in the galaxy. We need help. We need allies. We need someone who can think of something we have not tried. The council delegates began to speak among themselves. The chamber filled with the sounds of 100 different languages. Some voices were concerned. Others were afraid. Many were dismissive. Chancellor Zixara raised one crystalline appendage for silence. The council recognizes the severity of this threat. We will now hear responses from our member civilizations. One by one, the delegates spoke. One by one, they refused to help. The Tarkonian representative, a massive being with 6 legs and scales like metal, shook his great head. We face our own problems. We cannot spare ships for a war we cannot win. The Selenite ambassador, a creature that floated in a tank of liquid, spoke through bubbles. Our analysis shows a 98% probability of failure. We will not sacrifice our people for a lost cause. The Vorthon delegate, whose species communicated through colored lights, flashed a pattern that translated to cold mathematics. The resources required to fight this swarm would bankrupt our civilization. The logical choice is to prepare our defenses and hope it does not reach our space. On and on it went. Fear, calculation, self-interest. Not one civilization was willing to risk their people to help the Krillians. Some expressed sympathy. Others were blunt in their refusal. But the result was the same. The Krillians would face the swarm alone. Katie Morrison watched all of this from her small station at the far edge of the chamber. She was the human ambassador to the Galactic Council, a position that carried very little weight. Humanity had only joined the galactic community 47 years ago. They were the newcomers, the primitives, the species that still used chemical rockets and metal bullets. Katie was 34 years old with red hair tied back in a practical bun. She wore the dark blue uniform of the Human Diplomatic Corps. Her station was in the back of the chamber, far from the important delegates. Most days, no one even noticed she was there. She raised her hand to speak. The gesture was tiny and insignificant in the massive chamber. Chancellor Zixara almost missed it. The chair recognizes the human delegation, the Chancellor said, her tone suggesting this was merely a formality. Katie stood up. Her voice was small compared to the others, but it carried clearly through the translator system. The human government would like more information about this threat. We request that all data on the Void Swarm be transmitted to our science teams for analysis. Several delegates made sounds that translated to laughter. The Tarkonian representative's voice boomed across the chamber. With respect to the human ambassador, What could your species possibly contribute? You have no psionic abilities. Your weapons technology is centuries behind ours. Your ships are barely capable of faster-than-light travel. Katie felt her face grow hot, but she kept her voice level. Nevertheless, we would like to review the data. Another delegate spoke up. This is not a matter for children to play with. This is a threat that could destroy entire civilizations. Humanity should focus on protecting its own small corner of space and leave these matters to those with experience. Chancellor Zixara made a gesture that ended the discussion. The data will be provided to all member civilizations as a matter of protocol. This council is adjourned. The Krillian request for aid is formally denied. We will reconvene in one standard month to discuss defensive preparations. The holographic displays went dark. Delegates began to file out of the chamber, already moving on to other concerns. Velthor remained standing in the center of the chamber alone. His forearms hung at his sides. His species had ruled worlds when most of these civilizations were still learning to make fire. Now they were being left to die. Katie made her way down to the chamber floor. Her footsteps echoed in the nearly empty space. Velthor turned to look at her as she approached. She had to tilt her head back to meet his compound eyes. "Ambassador Morrison," he said. His translator made his voice sound tired. "You should not waste your time here. Go back to your people and tell them to build their defenses. The swarm will spread. Eventually, it will reach human space." Katie shook her head. "How long before your homeworld falls?"
3 months.
"Perhaps less. Then we have time," Katie said. She pulled out a small data device and held it up. "Send me everything you have on the swarm. Every battle recording, every sensor scan, every analysis, everything." Velthor's head tilted in a gesture of confusion. "Why? Your council will refuse any help, just as the others have." Katie smiled, and there was something fierce in her expression. "You might be surprised what humans will do when someone asks for help. We have a saying on Earth, it goes like this: no one gets left behind." She transmitted her contact information to Velthor and turned to leave. Behind her, the Krillian ambassador watched her go. He did not believe that humanity would help. How could they? They were barely more advanced than species still trapped on their homeworlds. What could they possibly do that the great civilizations of the galaxy could not? But he sent the data anyway. What else did he have? His people were dying and the galaxy had turned its back. If the humans wanted to look at the information, let them. It would not matter in the end. Katie walked out of the council chamber with her head held high. She had work to do. The moment she reached her ship, she began transmitting the data back to Earth. Along with it, she sent a simple message to the Human Defense Command. "Someone needs help. Sending all available information. Recommend immediate review by military command. This is real and it is coming for all of us eventually." She did not know if anyone would listen. She did not know if humanity would answer the call. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. If humans decided to help, the galaxy was about to learn something new about the species they called primitive. The message reached Earth 16 hours later. What happened next would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. Velthor felt something he had not felt in months. It was not hope, not exactly. Hope seemed foolish when facing something like the swarm. But it was something. A small spark in the darkness. He transmitted the coordinates of their forward command post. Then he sent a message to his superiors. The humans were coming. He did not know what they could do. But at least they would not die alone. On Earth, the news spread quickly. Within hours, every major network was covering. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Tarvesh system. Captain Brandon Hayes stood on the bridge of the Defiant and immediately knew they were too late to save this world. The planet that should have been visible in the viewport was not there. In its place was a cloud of debris and dust. 3 billion Krillians had lived on that world yesterday. Now there was nothing but scattered atoms and the dark mass of the void swarm consuming the remains. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Amy Chen from her station. She had seen the footage, studied the data, run 1,000 simulations. None of it had prepared her for seeing the swarm in person. It filled the space where the planet had been. Billions of creatures moving as one, each the size of a fighter craft. From a distance, they looked like a dark storm cloud. Up close, the sensors showed details that made Brandon's stomach turn. Each creature was a nightmare combination of biology and machinery. Organic tissue wrapped around metal components. Living eyes set into mechanical bodies. Teeth and claws mixed with weapons that glowed with strange energy. "Captain, "We are receiving a transmission from the Krillian fleet," said Lieutenant Emma Rodriguez at Communications. "They are requesting we fall back to their position." "Put it through," Brandon ordered. Ambassador Velthor's face appeared on the main screen. His compound eyes were dim with exhaustion. Behind him, the bridge of his command ship showed damage from recent combat. "Captain Hayes, you should not have come. There is nothing you can do here." "With respect, Ambassador, we did not travel 3,000 light years to turn back at the first sign of trouble," Brandon said. "What is the situation?" Velthor gestured with one of his forearms, and tactical data flooded into the Defiant systems. "The swarm took Tarvesh 6 hours ago. We evacuated what civilians we could, but millions died. Our fleet is falling back to the Korvax system. We have fortified positions there, but it will not matter. The swarm will adapt to our defenses just as it has every time before." Brandon studied the tactical display. The Krillian fleet was retreating in good order, but they were clearly beaten. Ships showed damage. Formations were loose. This was an army that had fought and lost too many times. "How does the swarm attack?" Brandon asked. "What is their pattern?" "There is no pattern," Velthor said with frustration. "They simply come. They overwhelm through numbers. We destroy thousands of them, but more always come. They absorb our weapons fire, learn from it, and adapt. What works once never works twice." Commander Jake Sullivan moved to stand beside Brandon. "Ambassador, have you tried kinetic weapons? Simple physical projectiles?" Velthor's head tilted in confusion. "We used such weapons thousands of years ago. They are inefficient compared to energy weapons. Why would we use inferior technology?" Jake and Brandon exchanged looks. "Because the swarm has not seen them before," Jake said. Before Velthor could respond, alarms blared throughout the bridge. "Captain, the swarm is changing course," Amy reported. "They are moving toward the Krillian civilian convoy. 400 ships, mostly families and refugees." Brandon did not hesitate. "All ships, combat formation Delta. Commander Sullivan, launch all fighters. Target those swarm elements moving toward the civilian convoy. Use kinetic weapons only. I want to see how they react to good old-fashioned bullets and missiles." "Captain, I must protest," Velthor said urgently. "Your ships are not strong enough to face the swarm. You will be destroyed." "Maybe," Brandon agreed. "But we did not come here to watch. Helm, take us in. Full speed." The human fleet accelerated toward the swarm. 15 ships against billions of creatures. On any reasonable analysis, it was suicide. But Brandon was counting on the swarm not understanding what it was about to face. The swarm noticed the human ships coming and diverted part of its mass to meet them. A wall of creatures broke off from the main body and rushed forward. Sensors showed they were charging energy weapons, preparing to fire the same kind of attacks they had faced from the Krillians. "All ships, hold fire until my mark," Brandon ordered. "Let them get close." The bridge crew tensed as the swarm rushed toward them. Amy counted down the distance. 5,000 kilometers, 4,000, 3,000. "Sir, they are preparing to fire," Emma warned. "Steady," Brandon said. The swarm creatures opened fire. Beams of energy lanced out toward the human ships, but the Defiant and her sister ships were smaller and faster than Krillian vessels. They jinked and weaved, dodging the attacks with maneuvers that would have torn apart larger ships. "Now," Brandon ordered. "All weapons open fire." The human fleet unleashed hell. But it was a different kind of hell than the swarm had ever encountered. No energy beams, no plasma torpedoes. Instead, thousands of metal slugs fired from railguns at a significant fraction of light speed. Nuclear-tipped missiles with simple chemical propulsion. Kinetic impactors that were nothing more than dense metal rods accelerated to incredible velocities. The swarm did not know what hit it. The creatures had adapted their bodies to absorb and redirect energy. They had biological and mechanical systems designed to handle heat and radiation, but they had nothing to deal with a chunk of metal traveling at relativistic speeds. The kinetic rounds tore through the swarm like bullets through paper. Each impact destroyed dozens of creatures. The nuclear missiles detonated not with directed energy, but with simple explosive force and radiation. The swarm creatures nearest the blast were torn apart by the shock waves. For the first time in months, the swarm's advance stopped. "They are confused," Amy said, watching the sensor readings. "The hive mind is trying to adapt, but it does not know what to adapt to. These are not energy weapons. There is nothing to absorb or redirect." "Press the advantage," Brandon ordered. "All fighters engage at close range. Commander Sullivan, show them what human pilots can do." Jake was already in his fighter, launching from the Defiant's flight deck along with 50 other pilots. They screamed into the swarm formation, weaving between the creatures at speeds that made sensor officers on both sides dizzy. The swarm tried to target them with energy weapons, but the human fighters were too fast and too agile. They flew patterns that seemed random but were actually carefully calculated chaos. They fired short bursts from their cannons, each burst sending hundreds of solid projectiles into swarm creatures. "This is Red Leader." Jake's voice came over the comm. "These things cannot handle close combat. They are designed for long-range engagements. Keep moving, keep firing, and do not let them lock on." Private Nicole Stevens watched from her station on the engineering deck of one of the support ships. She had been selected for the mission because of her application essay, but also because she was one of the best combat engineers in the training program. Right now, she was monitoring the performance of the experimental weapons Dr. Brennan had designed. "Captain Hayes, this is engineering. The biological payloads are ready for deployment. Recommend we test them on isolated swarm elements to gauge effectiveness." "Approved," Brandon responded. "Pick your target." Nicole designated a cluster of swarm creatures that had separated slightly from the main mass. "Launching biomissile now." The missile was simple in design. It was a delivery system for a genetically engineered pathogen that Dr. Brennan had created based on swarm tissue samples. It would not work on humans or Krillians. It was designed specifically to attack the organic components of the swarm creatures. The missile detonated in the middle of the cluster. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the swarm creatures began to spasm. Their organic tissue started breaking down at a molecular level. The mechanical parts remained, but without the living tissue to control them, they went inert and drifted in space. "It works," Nicole breathed. "Dr. Brennan, your pathogen works." On the bridge of the Defiant, Brandon allowed himself a small smile. "All ships load biological payloads. Target any swarm concentrations. Let us see how their hive mind likes this." The human fleet pressed forward, pushing back the swarm elements that had been moving toward the civilian convoy. The Krillian refugees watched in shock as the small human ships fought with a ferocity they had never seen before. Human fighters darted through the swarm like angry wasps, each pass leaving dead creatures floating in space. On the Krillian command ship, Velthor stood frozen, watching the tactical display. How is this possible? Those ships are smaller than ours. Those weapons are primitive, but they are winning. "Not winning," corrected one of his tactical officers. "But they are not losing. They are holding the swarm back. No one has done that before." The battle continued for 3 hours. The human fleet lost 2 ships and 17 fighters. 238 people died. But the civilian convoy escaped. 400 ships carrying over 1 million Krillian refugees made it to the jump point and escaped to safety. As the last civilian ship jumped away, Brandon gave the order to retreat. "All ships fall back to the Krillian fleet position. We have done what we can here." The swarm did not pursue. The hive mind was processing what had happened, analyzing these new weapons, preparing adaptations. The humans had bought time, but both sides knew it would not last. The human fleet regrouped with the Krillian forces. Brandon received a direct comm request from Velthor. When the ambassador's face appeared on screen, he looked different. The exhaustion was still there, but something... Admiral Kyle Peterson arrived in Krillian space with 40 more ships and a cargo hold full of weapons that made the Krillian military officers uncomfortable. He stood in the conference room aboard the Combined Fleet Command station and watched their reactions as Dr. Lisa Brennan explained what she had brought. "These are thermonuclear devices ranging from 5 kilotons to 50 megatons," she said, pointing to the display showing various missile types. "These containers hold chemical agents designed to disrupt organic neural systems. These are computer viruses programmed to infiltrate and corrupt any digital system they encounter. And these," she gestured to a set of sealed containers, "are engineered diseases that target the specific genetic markers we have identified in swarm tissue." One Krillian officer stood up abruptly. "You brought biological weapons? Chemical weapons? These things have been banned by galactic law for over 3,000 years. They are crimes against civilization. They are also effective," Admiral Peterson said calmly, "and right now I care more about effectiveness than I do about what is considered civilized. The swarm does not care about laws. It does not negotiate. It does not surrender. It just consumes. So we are going to use every weapon at our disposal to stop it." Ambassador Velthor raised one of his arms for silence. The Admiral is correct. We are fighting for survival. I formally waive any objections to these weapons on behalf of the Krillian Empire. Use whatever you must. Over the next week, the human forces taught the Krillians a new way of war. Commander Jake Sullivan ran training sessions for Krillian fighter pilots, showing them maneuvers that seemed impossible by their standards. The Krillians flew in precise formations using automated systems. Jake taught them to fly by instinct, to trust their reflexes, to be unpredictable. Your ships are faster than ours, Jake explained to a group of Krillian pilots. You have better engines, better power systems, but you fly like you are in a parade. Every movement is calculated and optimized. The swarm can predict that. You need to be random, chaotic, make decisions that do not make sense. That is how you survive. One young Krillian pilot, his carapace still bright with youth, clicked his mandibles in confusion. But random movements are inefficient. They waste energy and time. They also keep you alive, Jake replied. Efficiency does not matter if you are dead. Watch this. He pulled up footage from the battle at Tarvish. See this human pilot? He loops his fighter in a spiral that serves no tactical purpose. It wastes fuel. It exposes him to fire. By every logical calculation, he should not do it. But look what happens. The footage showed 3 swarm creatures firing at where they calculated the fighter would be. But because the pilot made an illogical maneuver, all 3 shots missed. The pilot then destroyed 2 of the creatures before they could adjust. That pilot survived because he did something stupid, Jake said. Sometimes stupid works. Remember that. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Amy Chen worked with Krillian tactical officers to identify weaknesses in the swarm's coordination. She had been studying battle data for weeks now, and had noticed patterns that others missed. The swarm is not truly one mind, she explained, pointing to her analysis. It is millions of minds connected through some kind of quantum communication network. Most of the creatures are simple, following instructions from coordination nodes. If we can identify and destroy those nodes, we can create chaos in their formations. We have tried targeting command structures before, a Krillian officer said. The swarm simply adapts and creates new ones. Right, Amy agreed. But you attack them with energy weapons, which gives the swarm time to adapt. We are going to use fast, overwhelming physical strikes. Get in, destroy the node, get out before they can respond. Then we move to a completely different tactic before they figure out what we are doing. Sergeant Tyler Brooks led the ground operations planning. He was 31 years old and had spent his entire adult life in combat zones on Earth and the colonies. He looked at the Krillian officers with an expression they could not quite read. You fight battles in space, he said bluntly. You bombard planets from orbit. You have forgotten how to fight on the ground. We have not. When the swarm takes a planet, it leaves structures behind. Hives, processing centers. We can infiltrate those and plant explosives, biological agents, computer viruses. We can wage war behind their lines. The Krillians were horrified. You want to send soldiers onto swarm-occupied worlds? That is suicide. Tyler smiled, and it was not a pleasant smile. Only if we fight fair. And trust me, we do not fight fair. The first major battle using the new tactics came at the Varan system. The swarm had been slowly advancing toward the system for days. The Krillians prepared their defenses in the traditional way, creating fortified positions around the inhabited planet. Admiral Peterson overruled their plan. We are not going to defend. We are going to attack. Attack? Velthor was shocked. The swarm outnumbers us 50-1. An attack would be throwing our forces away. A direct attack would be, Peterson agreed. But we are not going to attack directly. We are going to make them angry. What followed was unlike any battle the galaxy had ever seen. The human and Krillian fleets did not form defensive lines. Instead, they split into dozens of small groups. Each group attacked a different part of the swarm formation, using different weapons and different tactics. One group used nuclear missiles to destroy swarm creatures by the thousands. Before the swarm could adapt, that group retreated and another attacked with kinetic weapons. Then biological agents. Then cyber attacks that tried to corrupt the swarm's coordination network. Then chemical weapons. Then back to nuclear, but in a different way. The swarm tried to adapt to each attack, but by the time it developed a defense, the humans had already switched to something else. It was like fighting smoke. Every time the swarm thought it understood what it was facing, the tactics changed. This is chaos, one Krillian officer said, watching the battle unfold. Exactly, Lieutenant Emma Rodriguez replied from her communication station. We call it the doctrine of chaos. Never use the same tactic twice in a row. Never let the enemy predict your next move. Keep them off balance and confused. Dr. Brennan launched her most effective weapon during the third hour of battle. Modified diseases that spread through the swarm like wildfire. The organic components of swarm creatures began to fail. Their coordination broke down. For the first time, the swarm began to retreat. "They are pulling back," Amy reported with shock in her voice. "The swarm is actually retreating." The human and Krillian forces pursued, but carefully. They had learned not to press too hard. As they chased the swarm out of the system, Tyler Brooks led a team of 50 soldiers onto a moon where the swarm had established a processing center. The infiltration was terrifying. The swarm hive was a nightmare of organic and mechanical components fused together. Living walls pulsed with strange rhythms. Mechanical systems hummed with power. Swarm creatures moved through corridors on missions only the hive mind understood. Tyler's team moved silently through the structure, placing explosive charges and spreading modified viruses through the hive's computer systems. They encountered swarm creatures several times, but the humans used suppressed weapons and blades to kill them quietly before the hive mind could sound an alarm. Private Nicole Stevens worked frantically to hack into the hive's central computer core. She had 3 minutes before the charges detonated. She managed to upload a virus that would corrupt the swarm's local coordination network, but she also copied as much data as she could. "Got it," she whispered. "Pulling out now." The team made it out with seconds to spare. The explosions tore the hive apart from the inside. More importantly, the virus Nicole uploaded spread to other swarm elements in the system, causing confusion and friendly fire incidents. The swarm lost the battle at Varen. It was the first major defeat they had suffered since they appeared in Krillian space. The news spread across the galaxy like lightning. On the Galactic Council station, Chancellor Zixara called an emergency session. Delegates from dozens of civilizations watched footage of the battle. They saw human tactics that horrified them. Chemical weapons, biological agents, nuclear devices used not for power but for simple destruction, suicide missions, infiltration tactics that seemed barbaric, but they also saw the swarm retreating. They saw Krillian civilians being evacuated safely. They saw the impossible happening. "This is not civilized warfare," one delegate protested. "The humans are using weapons we abandoned millennia ago. They fight without honor or mercy." Katie Morrison stood up from her seat in the back of the chamber. She was no longer being ignored. "You are right. We do not fight with honor. We fight to win. You can sit here and debate the morality of our tactics while the swarm destroys everything, or you can admit that maybe, just maybe, we know what we are doing." The footage played on every screen across the galaxy. A human soldier, his armor scorched and damaged, carrying a wounded Krillian civilian through the ruins of a city, while the swarm closed in behind them. The soldier made it to an evacuation ship just before swarm creatures reached him. He handed the civilian to safety, then turned back into the burning city. The recording cut off as he disappeared into the smoke. That soldier was Sergeant Tyler Brooks. He did not come back from that mission. Neither did 19 other humans who stayed behind to buy time for civilians to escape. The images of their final stand spread across every civilized world. People who had dismissed humanity as primitive newcomers could not look away. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session once again. This time the chamber was full. Every major civilization sent their highest representatives. They could no longer ignore what was happening in Krillian space. Chancellor Zixara's crystalline form seemed to pulse with inner light as she addressed the assembly. "We gather today to discuss the ongoing situation with the Void Swarm. As you all know, humanity has been fighting alongside the Krillian Empire for 3 standard months. The results have been unprecedented. A holographic display showed the tactical situation. The swarm, which had been advancing steadily for months before humanity arrived, had been pushed back across 4 systems. Krillian casualties had dropped by 70%. Civilian evacuations were succeeding. The impossible was happening. The question before this council, the Chancellor continued, is what to do about humanity's methods. Their tactics violate numerous galactic conventions regarding warfare. They employ weapons banned for thousands of years. They fight with a savagery that many find disturbing, yet they are winning. A delegate from the Tarkonian Empire rose to speak. His massive scaled form seemed to fill his entire platform. I move that we formally request humanity cease their use of biological and chemical weapons. These tactics may be effective, but they set a dangerous precedent. If humanity normalizes such warfare, what stops other civilizations from doing the same? Before anyone could respond, Ambassador Katie Morrison stood up. She had been given a position of prominence in the chamber now. Success had earned humanity respect, even if it was grudging respect. With respect to the Tarkonian delegation, Katie said, her voice clear and strong, humanity did not ask for your permission to help the Krillians. We did not ask for your approval of our tactics. We acted when no one else would. Now you want to restrict what we can do because it makes you uncomfortable? We are concerned about the broader implications, another delegate said. Your people are teaching Krillian forces these tactics. What happens when this war ends? Will the galaxy be forced to deal with multiple civilizations armed with knowledge of barbaric warfare? Katie felt anger rising in her chest, but she kept her voice level. You know what disturbs me? For months you watched the Krillians die. Billions of them. You did nothing because you calculated it was not worth the risk. Now that humans are actually saving lives, you want to control how we do it. You want us to fight with one hand tied behind our backs so you can feel morally superior? Ambassador Morrison, Chancellor Zixara said gently, please understand our position. Many here fear that humanity is becoming too powerful, too dangerous. Katie looked around the chamber at all the delegates. You want to know what humanity is? I will tell you. 3 months ago, we lost a ship called the Valiant. It was carrying 217 people. Do you know what they were doing when they died? They were evacuating Krillian children from a colony world. The swarm caught them before they could jump away. The captain had time to send one message before his ship was destroyed. Do you know what he said? The chamber was silent. Katie continued, her voice thick with emotion. He said the children are safe. We got them to the other transports. It was worth it. 217 humans died to save 3,000 alien children they had never met. That is what humanity is. We are not perfect. We are not always civilized. But when someone needs help, we come. And we do not quit until the job is done or we are dead. She pulled up data on the main display. Since we arrived in Krillian space, humanity has lost 2,719 people. Do you know how many of them died in direct combat? Less than half. The rest died in rescue missions, civilian evacuations, medical operations. They died saving strangers. So do not lecture me about morality while you sit safely in your chambers debating philosophy. Katie sat down. The chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then Ambassador Velthor stood up on his platform. His forearms spread wide in a gesture of profound respect. I speak for the Krillian Empire, he said. Humanity came to us when we were dying. They fought for us when no one else would. They have saved millions of my people. They have lost thousands of their own. If the Council wishes to condemn their methods, then the Krillian Empire will stand with humanity. We will face your judgment together. More silence. Then one by one, other delegates began to speak. Small civilizations mostly. Species that had been ignored by the major powers. They spoke of watching humanity's actions with hope. They spoke of wondering why they had not helped. They spoke of shame. The session ended with no formal resolution. The Council could not agree on anything except that humanity had changed the equation. The swarm was no longer unstoppable. That meant everything had changed. While the politicians debated, the war continued. Captain Brandon Hayes stood on the bridge of the Defiant watching the tactical display. The fleet had just finished another battle at the Korvax system. This time the swarm had tried new tactics. It had split into smaller groups and attacked from multiple directions, trying to use the same approach the humans had used against it. The swarm is getting smarter, Lieutenant Amy Chen reported. It is learning from us now, not just adapting to our weapons. It is copying our strategies. Then we change again, Brandon said. What do we have that it has not seen? Captain Matt Jenkins appeared on the comm screen. His ship, the Relentless, had just arrived with fresh reinforcements from Earth. We brought something special this time. Remember those experimental weapons Dr. Brennan asked for? The ones she said were too dangerous to test anywhere near inhabited space? She finished them? Brandon felt a mix of hope and concern. Not just finished. She has a whole arsenal of new nightmares ready to deploy. Also brought another 30 ships and 8,000 volunteers. Earth is mobilizing everything we have. The reinforcements were desperately needed. The human fleet had been fighting nonstop for 3 months. Ships needed repairs, crews needed rest, casualties needed to be replaced. Earth was sending everything it could spare, but it was not enough. They needed help. That help came from an unexpected source. 3 days after the council session, a fleet of ships arrived in Krillian space. They were not human. They were not Krillian. They belonged to the Viridian Consortium, a mid-sized civilization that had been neutral until now. Their commander sent a simple message. We watched you fight. We watched you die for strangers. We can no longer stand aside. Tell us how we can help. Over the next 2 weeks, 5 more civilizations sent forces. Not the major powers. They were still debating and calculating. But smaller species, ones that understood what it meant to need help and not receive it. They brought ships, supplies, medical personnel. Most importantly, they brought hope. Field medic Samantha Porter worked in a hospital ship that treated both human and alien wounded. She was 33 years old and had seen more death in the past 3 months than in her entire career before this. The hospital received casualties from every battle, every rescue mission, every desperate fight. Samantha treated a young Krillian soldier whose carapace had been shattered by swarm weapons. As she worked to stabilize him, he kept clicking something over and over. When the translator finally made sense of it, she heard him saying, "Thank you" in Krillian. "Save your thanks," Samantha said gently. "Just heal up so you can get back to your family." The young soldier's compound eyes focused on her. "Why do humans help us? We are not your species. This is not your war." Samantha had been asked that question 100 times. She never had a good answer. Because you needed help. That is reason enough. Later that night, Samantha recorded a message to her daughter back on Earth. "I know you are scared because Mommy is far away. I know you do not understand why I had to go. Someday you will be old enough to understand. I came here because people were dying and I could help them. That is what doctors do. That is what humans do. We help. Remember that, baby. When you grow up, I hope you remember that the most important thing you can do is help people who need it." The message would never reach her daughter. Samantha's hospital ship was destroyed 2 days later during a swarm attack. She died helping evacuate patients, refusing to leave until everyone else was safe. Her message survived in the ship's backup systems. When it was recovered, someone shared it publicly. It spread across the galaxy within days. Parents of every species played it for their children. Samantha Porter became a symbol of everything humanity represented in this war. Commander Jake Sullivan was recovering from injuries when he heard about Samantha's death. He had been shot down during the last battle and barely. The swarm's central nexus hung in space like a dark star. It was massive beyond comprehension, a construct of billions of creatures and untold technology. Every swarm element in Krillian space connected to this central intelligence. Destroy it and the entire swarm would collapse. That was the theory, at least. Admiral Kyle Peterson stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the tactical display. The combined fleet assembled around him was the largest force humanity had ever put into space. 70 human ships, 40 Krillian vessels, and another 30 from the civilizations that had joined the fight. Against them, the swarm had concentrated nearly its entire force. The sensors showed so many swarm creatures that the display could barely render them all. "This is going to be bad," Commander Jake Sullivan said quietly. He stood beside the Admiral, his arm still in a brace from his last injury. The doctors had told him he was not cleared for combat. He had ignored them. "Worse than bad," Peterson agreed. "We will lose most of our ships. Maybe all of them. But if Dr. Brennan's calculations are correct, this ends today." In the science bay of the Defiant, Dr. Lisa Brennan made final adjustments to the kill code. It was loaded into a modified missile designed for one purpose only: get through the swarm's defenses and deliver its payload directly into the central nexus. The code would spread through the swarm's quantum communication network like a virus, shutting down every coordination node simultaneously. In theory, it would work perfectly. In practice, someone had to fly that missile through hell itself. Lieutenant Connor Walsh checked his fighter for the 20th time. He was 26 years old and had been flying combat missions for only 2 months. He was not the most experienced pilot. He was not the best shot, but he had volunteered for this mission because he understood what it meant. Someone had to do it, and he could do it. "You do not have to do this," Jake Sullivan said, approaching the young pilot. "We can still find another way." Connor shook his head. "No, we cannot. You need your best pilots to get the fleet through. You need experienced crews to cover the retreat. This mission needs someone who can fly straight into the Nexus without hesitation. I can do that. You know you will not make it back, Jake said gently. I know. Connor smiled, and it was genuine. My dad always told me that a life spent helping others is a life well lived. I am 26 years old, Commander. I have lived more in the past 3 months than most people live in a lifetime. I have fought beside heroes. I have saved lives. If this is where my story ends, I am okay with that. Jake Sullivan, who had seen more death than any human should, felt his eyes sting. Your father would be proud of you. I hope so, Connor said. He climbed into his fighter. Take care of the others, Commander. Get them home. The fleet began its final approach to the Nexus. The swarm responded immediately, launching waves of creatures to intercept them. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Human ships and their allies pushed forward in a wedge formation, focusing their fire to punch through the swarm lines. Nuclear weapons detonated by the dozens, creating temporary gaps in the enemy formation. Kinetic impactors tore through swarm creatures. Biological weapons spread like plague. Chemical attacks created clouds of death. The swarm fought back with everything it had. Energy beams lanced through space. Swarm creatures swarmed around human ships, tearing at their hulls with mechanical claws. Ships exploded. People died. The battle was chaos made physical. Captain Brandon Hayes commanded the assault from the Defiant. His ship shook from near misses and direct hits. All ships maintain formation. Do not break off no matter what happens. We only get one shot at this. One ship exploded to his right. Another lost power and began drifting. A Krillian cruiser took a direct hit and split in two. The casualties were mounting faster than anyone wanted to count. We have lost 9 ships, Lieutenant Amy Chen reported, her voice tight with stress. 15 more are heavily damaged. Keep going, Brandon ordered. Walsh, you are clear to launch when ready. In his fighter, Connor Walsh waited for the signal. Around him, the battle raged. He watched human and alien ships dying to create a path for him. So many people sacrificing themselves so he could complete his mission. This is Defiant to Walsh. You are clear. Good luck, son. Connor launched from the Defiant's fighter bay at full speed. His fighter was fast, the fastest they had. It would need to be. He had to cross 5,000 kilometers of space filled with swarm creatures, reach the Nexus, and deliver his payload before the swarm could stop him. The first 20 seconds were pure adrenaline. Connor weaved through swarm creatures, his hands moving faster than thought. Training took over. He did not think about what he was doing. He just flew. Swarm weapons fired at him from every direction. He jinked left, rolled right, dove down. A beam missed him by meters. Another scraped his shields. He kept flying. Behind him, the fleet threw everything they had at the swarm to keep creatures from pursuing. Commander Sullivan led a wing of fighters in a desperate screening action, destroying anything that got too close to Connor's flight path. Connor crossed the halfway point. His fighter took a hit that knocked out his secondary systems. Warning lights flashed. His shields failed. He kept flying on primary power alone. Walsh, you are taking heavy fire. Amy's voice came through his comm. You need to evade. No time, Connor replied. His voice was calm. I am almost there. The Nexus loomed ahead of him, massive and terrible. Up close, it looked like a living thing. Organic and mechanical components fused together in ways that should not be possible. Eyes stared out from metal surfaces. Teeth-lined passageways. It was beautiful and horrible at the same time. Connor armed the missile. His fighter took another hit. This time, critical systems failed. He lost maneuvering control. His fighter was flying straight now on momentum alone directly toward the Nexus. Perfect, Connor whispered. He activated his comm one last time. His voice broadcast across every ship in the fleet. This is Lieutenant Connor Walsh. I want everyone to know something. I am not afraid. I am not sad. I am honored to be here. Honored to fight beside all of you. This is what humanity does. We answer the call. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. We never quit. We never surrender, and we never leave anyone behind. His fighter crossed the final kilometer. Swarm weapons hit him again and again. His canopy cracked. Atmosphere began venting. Connor's suit sealed automatically, keeping him alive for a few more seconds. For Earth, he said softly. For the Krillians. For everyone who ever needed help and did not get it. This one is for you. He launched the missile at point-blank range. It streaked forward and impacted directly on the Nexus's central structure. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then Dr. Brennan's kill code activated. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The quantum network that connected every swarm element began to collapse. Coordination nodes shut down across light years of space. Swarm creatures stopped moving, their hive mind suddenly silent. The central nexus began to tear itself apart as its own systems turned against it. Connor's fighter, damaged beyond recovery, tumbled into the nexus's gravitational pull. His last sight was of the impossible structure breaking apart around him. His last thought was simple and peaceful. He had done it. The mission was complete. On the Defiance Bridge, everyone watched in silence as the nexus collapsed. The swarm, without its central intelligence, began to fall apart. Creatures that had moved with perfect coordination now crashed into each other. Some simply stopped functioning and drifted dead in space. Others attacked their own kind, their basic programming conflicting without the hive mind to guide them. It worked, Amy whispered. The kill code worked. Brandon Hayes looked at the display showing where Connor's fighter had disappeared into the nexus. Sound retreat. Get everyone back to safe distance. We are done here. The fleet began to pull back. The swarm, what was left of it, did not pursue. Without coordination, it was no longer a threat. Individual creatures were dangerous, but they were just animals now. They could be dealt with. The casualties were staggering. 19 human ships destroyed. 742 people dead. Another 1,000 wounded. The Allied forces had lost ships too. The Krillians had lost 5 cruisers. The civilizations that had joined late had lost 8 vessels. But they had won. After months of fighting, after thousands of deaths, after sacrifices that would never be forgotten, they had won. The news spread across the galaxy within hours. The impossible had happened. The Void Swarm was destroyed. The species that everyone had dismissed as primitive had done what no one else could do. They had saved the Krillian Empire. They had saved the galaxy. The Galactic Council convened 1 week after the battle. This time, the chamber was silent as Ambassador Katie Morrison walked to the center platform. She was tired. She had aged years in the past 3 months. But she stood straight and tall. Chancellor Zixara spoke first. Ambassador Morrison, the Galactic Council wishes to formally recognize humanity's actions in the war against the Void Swarm. Your species showed courage and selflessness that shames us all. We offer our deepest gratitude. Katie nodded but did not smile. We did not do it for gratitude. We did it because it was the right thing to do. Ambassador Velthor stepped forward. His 4 arms were spread in the highest gesture of respect his species had.